Game one of the NBA Finals is tonight between the Thunder and Pacers. Coy Camiscioli, Philly Sports Talk here. I'm going to preview the series a little bit, give you just a little brief overview of how I think the series is going to go and who I think is going to win. All that fun stuff. This is something I usually do every year, and this one's going to be a little bit shorter, but it's okay. Again, I'm trying to get back into the mix of things with the podcast, but let's just talk basketball. Um, I want to start off by saying that anybody who's saying that this is like this is bad for basketball, this series, no big markets, all this, all that, that is so dumb. That is so dumb. I mean, because it's the same people that say the same thing when the Celtics are in the mix every year, the Lakers are in the mix, or you know they're in the finals. Like, damn, it's the same team again. It's just so bad for basketball. And now we actually have two of probably the best teams in basketball at this point from the East and West, and we're complaining about it. This is ridiculous. Obviously, that's not everybody, and I just want to get that out there because this is awesome for the sport. I think two markets that have never won a title with the Thunder and the Pacers. So we're destined to get something here that we've never seen before, which is pretty cool. Obviously, the Thunder carry all the storylines coming into this with how dominant they've been. They've won over 80 plus games in the entire season at this point, including the playoffs. She got the MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP, and looking to add the NBA Finals MVP. That would be a hell of a run right there. But the one thing that I looked at before I went in to make this podcast is these two teams' history between each other this past year, and the Thunder beat them twice, one by 8 points, and the other one by a pretty good margin. Let me pull those scores up. Yeah, back on March 29th, the Thunder beat them 132 to 111, and back in December, day after Christmas, 120 to 114. Two games. That's not going to give us everything we need to know in this series. It's a little bit different when I preview Eastern Conference playoff series for the Sixers, and they played the Knicks 4 times or whatever, and we got demolished in 3 of the 4 times, and they were out rebounded us and stuff like that. Because then you kind of get a little bit of trends. This isn't good enough for a trend. I don't think those two games dictate who's going to win this series. Again, I haven't revealed who I think is going to win yet, but the Thunder, they just really look like the complete team right now. Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, Shea Gilgeous are all balling out, and their role players, don't even get me started. Defensively, they're a bunch of monsters. Alex Caruso, Lou Dort. I also saw another stat the other day that when Lou Dort was guarding Tyrese Halliburton throughout their careers, it's not good. It is not good for Tyrese Halliburton. I forget the shooting percentage exactly, but I don't know. This should be exciting. It's a fun series. It really is. I kind of had a little thing with the Pacers early on. I actually had them making the Eastern Conference Finals in my pre-playoff bracket, but I had the Celtics on the other side, and I also had the Celtics beating them in 6 games. Obviously, the Knicks took down the Celtics, and then the Pacers took care of business against the Knicks. But my point being is I've been high on the Pacers for a while. I remember when it kind of first came to my attention that they really are pretty good was last year against the 76ers when we did have a Joel Embiid that's on the court. They just, they did their pace. They had their pace with the game, and we just could not keep up. And anytime we did something good for our team, they just countered it right away because of how fast-paced they were. And that's when I first started to take notice. I'm like, wow, I've never really seen a team play basketball like this. So it's worked so far against everybody they played. Obviously, the Bucks couldn't keep up. Dame Lillard goes down. Obviously, the Cavaliers could not keep up at all. I think they got beaten 5. And the Knicks really couldn't either. Now, the one thing that's interesting that the Knicks didn't blow that Game 1 lead that was horrendous. It could be a different series. It probably would have been 3-3 going to Game 7. If, who knows what happens in the rest of the games. But with the outcomes that we saw going into Game 6, it would have been 3-3 going to Game 7. Back to Indiana. Not back to Indiana, in Madison Square Garden. So everything could have been a different story, but that's not what we saw. So with the Pacers, I'm intrigued to see, how their pace affects the Thunder, because I feel like the Thunder can also play kind of at that pace, especially because of how suffocating their defense can be. I do think there is an equilibrium to be found for the Pacers of, being careful with the basketball while also playing at the ridiculous pace that they play at. Because if they go a little too fast, a little too crazy, I think the Thunder is going to force a lot of turnovers, which would be obviously terrible for the Pacers. So, yeah, this is an awesome series. I can't wait. And the other big thing for the Pacers, Pascal Siakam, he has just been excellent. It's been really cool to watch him play. He won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP actually. So he's been honestly one of the more underrated players of this era of basketball. Obviously in 2019 he was a big piece of that Toronto Raptors championship alongside Kawhi Leonard. And right now I had to give them props because I remember I did a podcast actually when the Pacers made the trade for Siakam a year and a half ago or whenever it may be. And I was talking about how it's good. It's good. I don't think it'll get them over the hump, but this is really cool to see a team like the Pacers, who were kind of just in purgatory of first round exits at the fourth or five seed. They finally go to make a move for a big time player, and I gave them a pretty high grade because of that. Because I was like, that's cool, because you want to see more smaller markets like that go for bigger players and just get out of purgatory. And here they are. They get rewarded for bringing in big time players. And that's pretty cool to see because they deserve it. So good stuff there by the Pacers. Seriously, I did not think that trading for Pascal Siakam was going to put them in back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals and an NBA Finals appearance and potentially a championship. So some great stuff there. Their role players have also been excellent. TJ McConnell, Andrew Nembhard has been great. Obviously, Aaron Nesmith had one of the greatest heat checks of all time in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. So they've got a lot of guys. Miles Turner, too. I want to give him a congratulations. It's cool to see for him. He's been there for 10 years. It feels like he's been on the trade block forever as well. So some good to see for some of those players. And, it's awesome. It's good for the sport. It really is. Their team has been through the ringer a little bit for a little while, and they're pretty good now. So that's kind of like my Pacers side standpoint a little there. Again, I really like the role players in McConnell. Obviously, former Sixer Andrew Nembhard is like one of my favorite players. His defense on Jalen Brunson in the Eastern Conference Finals was nothing short of spectacular. He shut him down. That was really cool to see. So also, I want to comment on that series real fast. Obviously there was a little bit of foul baiting here and there, but that series was so good for the sport. Every single game, and especially Game 6, where even in the very beginning, every loose ball, there were players diving, pushing, shoving to get it since the first quarter, and it was like that for pretty much, all 4 quarters of all 6 games. So that was a great series, so good for the sport. Obviously, a couple times the refs kind of took in control for both sides. I'm not talking just for one side of calling some bad calls here and there, but that series was awesome. And I'm glad the Pacers won it. They deserve it. So on the West, obviously the Thunder, they just kind of rolled their way through. Now, it does kind of bring to my attention, obviously I'm a Joel Embiid guy. I do think that when he was in his prime, was healthy, he was the most dominant player in basketball. But there is no denying just how valuable Nikola Jokic is. And why I'm saying this is because the Thunder just dominated the entire regular season, and then they dominate in the postseason. And somehow the Thunder kind of took them to a quiet 7 games. I feel like we weren't even looking at that series that much. Obviously we were, but I don't feel like we thought the Thunder were, that insane. Obviously we knew they were that good, but, we didn't know that they were that insane, that they were just going to steamroll through everybody. And for the Thunder, for the Nuggets, it kind of just proved how valuable Nikola Jokic is for that team. I saw something with the MVP stats. With Shea on the court for the Thunder, they were plus 16. Without him, they were plus 10. And for the Nuggets, with Jokic, it was plus 10, and without him, it was minus 9 or something. So it's just some crazy numbers there. I wanted to point that out for a second. But yeah, the great series in the second round between those two teams. Not so much between the Thunder and the Timberwolves. I kind of had a feeling. I think a lot of knowledgeable basketball fans did too, because the Timberwolves, they weren't that insane throughout the regular season. They kind of got hot towards the end. They definitely still have their holes. I didn't really care who. I would have preferred to see Edwards and the Wolves have gone on, but I didn't have that much of a preference. I liked the Thunder growing up as a kid. Kevin Durant there he is in the back there, kind of started my love for the game. So cool stuff for both those teams. I wish that series went 6 or 7 games, a little more competitive, and obviously it was not competitive at all. But the Thunder, they're the best team in the West for a reason. Honestly, they're the best team in the NBA. It's going to be a tough one for the Pacers. So they're obviously clicking on all cylinders. So let's give me a quick preview of what I think is going to happen this series. Games 1 and 2 in Oklahoma City. Obviously, both teams have a lot of rest right now. Um, I, this is tough. I think I'm going to go with the Thunder win this series in 6. I think they're going to win this series in 6. That's my gut guess. Um, but man, I would love to see Game 7. It'll be the first time since 2016 where we got an NBA Finals Game 7 with the Cavaliers and the Warriors. It definitely is possible that the Pacers kind of stun them Game 1. They kind of rebound moving forward, but you can't give away games, especially at this point in the year. So I think the two teams will split the first 2 games in Oklahoma City. And then honestly, I could see them splitting in Indiana to go to 2-2. And then I think the Thunder would close out in Game 5 and 6 and win it in Indiana. But that is my prediction. I do hope it goes 7. And I think I prefer the Pacers to win. I think it's just their run has just defied the odds. It's been so cool. Since Tyrese Halliburton being called or being voted the most overrated player, and the Pacers kind of just being the team that they are. That would be really cool to see them win. But honestly, either war, I don't care. It's good for the sport. It's fun to see. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thunder in 6. I think Thunder win Game 1, Pacers win Game 2. Pacers win Game 3 maybe, and then Thunder win Game 4, and then they go on to win 5 and 6 and close it out in Indiana. So that is my prediction. Everybody go follow the Philly Sports Talk Instagram page. This is Philly.sports.talk_. Want to get that out there for a few, and yeah, that's going to do it. I'll have a podcast out maybe in between every 2 games of the series, if not at the end, recapping the NBA Finals. But yeah, that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much for listening.